Hi, YouTube family. It's Miss Margaret here again. How are you doing? I hope you are having a great day. Miss Margaret here with another video. And please, like I always do, I'm asking you to please share, like, and subscribe to my channel, which is going to help me. I appreciate all those who have subscribed and all those that are viewing my videos. But I notice I have a lot of viewers, and I also want all those viewers to be subscribers. Please and thank you. Okay, my video today, I'm going to be speaking about my human angel, Rob. Uh, in my last video, I remember I mentioned that I ended up homeless with my 3 children after the breakdown of the marriage, losing my job. I ended up on welfare, as they call it here, social assistance. And everything just kept snowballing downhill. After I ended up with 3 children, I couldn't work anymore, a full-time job. The price for daycare was enormous. And with the wages I was making, I could not afford. My older daughter, she was in school, and my 2 younger children, at that time, they were 2 years old, and the other one I think was 10 months old. So I have 2 toddlers still in diapers. And so I decided to go on welfare, on social assistance, because I did not have any other help, and trying to take care of 3 children on my own was a whole nother story. And so I went to the welfare, I applied for welfare. And in those days, they used to give you enough to pay your rent and a smaller portion to buy food. And when you run out of food, which normally would happen, like maybe the first week and a half of the new month, you had to go to food banks to get help with food. You would be lucky if a family member or a friend, knowing your situation, would come and give you, even if it's a little bit of money, to get a little extra, and so on and so forth. But that wasn't my case. So I just used to make do with whatever little I have. There are many days that I didn't know what to do. I did not want to see my children going hungry. So many days I used to take a little part of the money from the rent to buy food for them. I have to buy diapers because I still had 2 children in diapers. I have to buy milk and formula for them. I have to buy groceries because I still have a 10-year-old to take care of. I have to get clothes for them, shoes. When winter time is coming, if they don't have proper winter attire, I have to buy winter attire. My priority always was to make sure that my children had what they need. I forget about myself because it is what it is. I'm the adult. And I remember it got so lean and so bad and so dark that I couldn't pay the rent. Not with what I was making on social assistance. And I tried talking to the landlord. I say, I can give you half. Please help me at the beginning of the month. And when I get the next payment, I'll give you the other half to cover the full month. Please help me because I can't afford to feed my children and pay this big amount of rent. It was a 1-bedroom apartment, an apartment that was over a business place, a store. And I talk. She allowed me to do it. But she have a husband, she has adult children, and it wasn't working for them. It wasn't working for them because this was their income property. And they wanted their money up front. And so I can't remember how many months it was. And she evicted me and my children. And this was in the height of winter. It was in the height of winter. And so I called the shelter system, the family shelter system. And in those days, they have a family shelter on the outskirts of the city of Toronto. And in those days, they used to send a taxi to pick you up because it's you and 3 children. So whatever belongings you could take with you, you bring. And it was like an apartment building with different floors. And every family, they have one little room with beds. There is a refrigerator in there. There is microwave in there. In case you need to make a little snack or to warm up food. And then they would also provide like breakfast, lunch, and dinner for you and your children. So they had allowed you, a little space where you can have something to eat. And so when I ended up on the streets, with me and my children, that location was filled. They didn't have any rooms there. But they told me, it doesn't matter, you come. We're going to put you up in a motel. Because by this time the shelter system started to get filled, especially with single mothers and their children. And so they did what they said. They sent me a taxi and I load up whatever personal belongings in suitcases for my children and myself. And the taxi brought us. The counselor, she gave me all the information. And she brought us to the motel. Like I said, this is on the outskirts of Toronto. Very far. I did not know that area. I did not know anybody in that area. But I said, at least it's a room, a roof over our heads. It's warm. There is 2 queen-size beds in the room. There is a refrigerator. There is a washroom. There is a microwave, a table with chairs. At least we're out of the cold. We don't have to sleep on the street. And that was the first time I experienced homelessness with me and my children. And there's a reason why I'm saying it was the first time. Okay. And so we went there, and I remember like it was yesterday. It was like a week or 2 weeks before Christmas that year. And I felt so upset inside. I felt so like physically drained because of the stress. And in my heart I'm saying, but this is not where I want to spend Christmas with my children. I tried to explain to them, I tried to tell them this and this and this is what happened. And but children, what do they really understand? They don't like the environment. They hate being there. I said, well, it's either we stay here until they help us find housing, or we go sleep on the street in the cold, in the minus 20 and 30 degrees, freezing cold. That doesn't make sense, but we don't have a choice right now. And I felt sad. I felt extremely sad that I'm putting my children through this. There's no family I could tell. I felt ashamed. There's no friend I could tell. Because sometimes the first thing you hear out of your family's mouth and your friend's mouth is, go to the shelter. At least they're going to help you. You're going to get food, and you have a roof over your head. It was emotionally and psychologically and physically draining. But I had to do what I had to do. If you're a single parent and you have never been homeless, don't judge those who have walked through this. Until you walk in my shoes and other single parents who are in a similar situation, even on today as I speak to you, do not judge them. You have to walk a mile in my shoes before you're allowed to judge me and some of the decisions that I have to make. And if you have never experienced this in your life, keep quiet. Zip your lip. Keep your fingers off of the computer and off of your phone. Please and thank you. And so I continue with my story and my experience. And so we got to the motel, and they used to give me an allowance because in the family shelters, they never, when you're in the motels, if I was in the apartment building, they provide everything. But now I'm in the motel, I have to cook for my children, and so they would give you an allowance every week. And with that allowance, you go down the road, there's grocery stores down the road. You buy whatever you need, whatever food items you need. And this was why they had a refrigerator in the room and a microwave. And that's where you cook your meals, in the microwave. And you store whatever little food items you have in the refrigerator. And that is how you did it. At some motels, they had a kitchen, but not at this motel where I was. So you were allowed to cook in your room. But at some other motels, they had a kitchen in the basement, because the motels might have like about 3 floors. And so they had a basement. And so you could go down and cook your food on a real stove. They had 2 stoves and a refrigerator in the basement. Also in that type of motel, you had a refrigerator and a stove in every room. So it was up to you what you want to do, how you want to prepare your meals. And everybody had to take turns, because everybody living in the motel at that time, they want to go down and cook the meals on a regular stove, and the stove have an oven. If they want to bake or whatever, you have to take turns. And you go, and when you finish cooking, you clean up, then it's somebody else's turn. But at this motel where we were, there was no kitchen area. So everything had to be done in the microwave. There were days when I didn't really want to cook in a microwave. So as long as I had the little extra, I would go sometimes and buy, even if it's a fried chicken dinner or some type of West Indian food, whatever my children they like, I would go and spend a little extra and buy for them. And there was also a little shopping plaza in the area close to this motel that had a bakery, that had a shop where you could buy sandwiches, as well as a little grocery store. And many times I just used to walk with my 2 younger children and my older daughter gone to school, and we would go over there and I would buy sandwich or whatever little muffin or cookies or whatever little thing they want, and so they could have a little snack. And so, like I said, it was like 2 weeks before this Christmas. And you know, I never know what depression meant. Some of you might find this strange. I never know what happens to you when you're depressed. But I used to talk to my counselor because there are counselors there. They want to counsel you. They want to talk to the kids if the kids need counseling, if they want to talk and all this stuff. I remember my older daughter, she was very angry at me. And one night she decided she's going to run away and she took off. This is in the height of winter. First she started arguing with me, why we have to, why this, why that. And it break my heart. But she didn't get far because in that cold, wearing running shoes or slippers or whatever she had on her feet, she came back. And it was really hurting me. It was really hurtful to me. I know she was hurt. My two younger children, by this time they were like about, I think 4 and 5, because they told me I need to put them in preschool. And there was a school right across the road, down the road. But I'm telling you, it was like, we did like 2 weeks, we went in there like 2 weeks before Christmas. And it was like a week before the Christmas holidays. The counselor came to my door and she says, Margaret, I don't know if you would be interested in this, but there are some people calling the shelter and saying they want to support one of the women and their children and bring Christmas gifts for them and, do something special for them. And so I don't know if you would be interested in being a part of this program. So she says to me, yes. The day before Christmas, we always have a big Christmas party for the children. And so the school bus is going to come and pick everybody up from this motel. And we're going to take you to the head office where they have a big recreation room. And the kids and you as moms, you guys going to get gifts. We also have lots of food. And the children going to get their toys. And Santa is going to be coming. I say, wow, it sounds very good. And so she said to me if I'm interested, because there are different people calling and they just want to sponsor one family. And so, Margaret, I give this individual your name and your children and their ages. I said, okay. For what it's worth, it's fine by me. She said, I don't want you to feel that you have to accept help from other people, because if you feel kind of embarrassed or you feel ashamed, and I said, no. Right about now, my dear, I need all the help I could get, because I need to come up with first and last month rent, and I need to find an apartment for me and my children, because we can't continue living like this. And I'm going to tell you about the state of the room that we were in. It was infested with roaches. At first, when you walk in the room, it looked nice and clean, and they have the beds, makeup, and all kind of thing. When the night time came, I never see roaches like this in my life. The bed, the wall, the floors, the carpet, the little piece of carpet they have there. Roaches all in the fridge, all in the microwave, infested. I was so scared. I ran to the office and I said to the counselor, I said, but this place is infested with roaches. Could you give me a couple of cans of roach spray to spray this place and spray down the bed? You know what that woman looked at me and said? She says, you complaining about roach in the room? She said, first of all, if you want roach spray, you go down the road and you buy it. And number two, you complaining about roaches. She said, you should be thankful that you and your children have a roof over your head. And you're not sleeping outside in the cold. Because there's a whole bunch of people, including single women like you and their children, out in the cold. And I looked at her. I said, you know something, you're right. And I thank you for telling me that. Because the way I look at life is like you have to learn certain lessons. You don't have to fly off the handle and get upset and this and carry on. There are lessons to be learned along the way in life. And if you don't learn that lesson, when it presents itself, it goes around and it comes back around. Okay, learn it now. Same situation, second time, what are you going to do? And you know what I used to do? I didn't have the extra to go down the road and buy this spray. But I used to sit up in the night. And I used to be killing roaches when I see them crawling all over the bed with my children sleeping. Because I was afraid that the roaches would go down, crawl down in their ears and in their nose. And so I used to sit there and kill the roaches. Stay up all night, watching the three of them. I put all three of them on the same bed to sleep. And that was my job every night. Until I could buy roach spray. At one point in time in the night, before they go to bed, I tell them I got bathroom tissue. And I tell them, take the bathroom tissue, and I screw it up like this and I stick it in the ears. Mom, why are we doing this? I said, because I don't want roaches to crawl down in you guys' ears. Then the other thing I said, if you want, you can also put some in your nose. And my older daughter said, but how are we going to breathe? I said, oh snap. I wasn't thinking about I said, oh no, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I said, all I'm thinking, I don't want roach crawling in your nose and in your ears when you're sleeping. I wasn't even thinking right. I said, oh, no, don't do that, okay? Let's figure it out. And so every night, I used to stay there. And if I see roach crawling, I kill them. Until I bought roach spray. But it's still, it just roach spray, it just helped the situation, I guess, for a couple of days. Because when I get to realize The roach, they were embedded in the wall. They were embedded in the bed, in the corners of where the old carpet was all over. So I was going through like 2 cans of road spray, trying to spray that room from the bed to the walls to the floor to the carpet. It was something else. But I still didn't give up. But one night, it was just too much for me. It was very dark place for me. And I looked at my children sleeping. And with tears in my eyes, I put on my little piece of boots that I had. I put on my coat, because it was winter time. And I said, I do not want to spend Christmas, me and my children, in this situation. And at that time, there was a cliff with a raging water of lake below it. And I said to myself, I cannot even take care of these children that I bring into this world. Might as well the government take care of them. Because I'm really not doing a good job. And that was when I tell myself I was going to leave the 3 of them sleeping in the bed and go jump off the cliff. But as soon as I got to the door, it's like something just stopped me. I turn around and I look at them again. And I said, I can't do this. I can't. It's like something is saying to me, stop. And I said, I can't do this. It doesn't matter what hell we're going through. I'm going to stick it out. I'm not a perfect mother, but I'm going to stick it out. And I'm going to try my best. There are times when I'm going to fail. There are times when I'm going to make bad decisions. But I'm going to stick it out. I throw off the piece of coat and the boots, and I just crawl into the other bed and I lay down. And so it was the week before Christmas, after the counselor had asked me if I was interested in allowing this individual to sponsor me and my children, to buy gifts for the children and to help us. And she says, okay, this individual is going to come by, and she give me the day, she give me the time. So make sure, you and the children, that you're in your room and all this stuff. And I say, yes, we're going to be here. Where are we going? It's winter time. And we're going to stay inside. And exactly at the same time, I heard a knock on the door. And when I went to the door, there was this gentleman and a lady. And so he asked me, he said, oh, hello, hi. I was given your name by the counselor. So I said, yes, come in. She told me, so I pulled the two chairs that was there and I tell him and this young lady, they can sit down. And so they sat down. And then my older daughter is like years after, she said to me, Mom, when I looked at Rob's face when he entered the room and he saw us, it was like shock and disbelief. I said, I didn't even notice that. I was so happy to see him and this young lady who was with him. It's later on I get to understand that this young lady was one of his staff and she worked in his office because he was a businessman, a very wealthy businessman, but I did not know that. And he wasn't somebody of my nationality either. I leave that there. And so he started to talk to me. He started to ask me, well, Margaret, how did you get in this situation? And this and this. And I started relaying my story to him again. And even the young lady, she was sitting very quiet because I thought that was his wife, but it wasn't. It's later on I get to find out that she was one of his staff members. And he asked her to come along with him because he was going to meet this family that he already tell himself he's going to help to get out of this shelter, because a woman and children shouldn't be in any shelter, let alone this motel. No. And so I spoke to him, then he started to say hi to my kids and start to talk with them and so on and so forth. And after we finished talking and I explained everything to him, he asked me what he can do to help me and my children. I said, Rob, I need to find an apartment. I'm going to need first and last month's rent. I'm going to need money because at this time when I was evicted, I had put some of my belongings in a storage because there was an organization that came and helped me and they moved the stuff and put it in storage, but they didn't really pay for it. I had to pay the storage costs, which I was still getting the welfare money, so I was able to pay. But when I moved to the shelter, then it was a different ball game because they're not giving you the full amount that you were getting when you had an apartment. They cut it down and they're just giving you, according to them, just the basic. But the shelter was helping me to pay the storage. So that was good. So I said to him, I said, I'm going to need to get even a moving truck after I find a place to move the little furniture and other personal items that I have in the shelter to the apartment. And he was listening to me and just shaking his head, very calm, very quiet, very polite. And so he said to me, he said, okay, Margaret, I'll help you with that. And he said, I want to bring the kids some Christmas gifts. What do they want? And if I'm not mistaken, because this has been over how many years? Like about 30 years or more, I don't even know. And he said to me, If I'm not mistaken, I think he started to ask them what they need and what they wanted for Christmas. I can't even remember. That part is kind of foggy. But they were talking to him and he talking to them and they're going back and forth. And he said, okay. And then he turned to his staff member that was with him, this young lady. And he said, make a note of this, make a note of that. We're going to get this, we're going to get that. And you can come and drop it off. He said to her. And she said, oh, okay, Rob, okay, no problem. And so that was what was done. And he said, okay, Margaret, you don't worry. I'm going to keep in touch with you. And so on and so forth. And I said, okay, I thank you very much. Thank you very much for thinking about me and my children. Thank you very much for wanting to help us. And he says, that's what we're here for. And they left. That relationship between Rob and my children lasted for over 5 years. He helped me with everything that I asked him to help me with. When the counselor found a 2-bedroom apartment for me and my children, he helped me with the first and last month rent. He helped me to move my belongings from the storage. He helped me with Christmas gifts and food and whatever I needed. For no questions asked, no strings attached. He said, but Margaret, I do not just want to help you with this and then you're there struggling every month. He said, every month I'm going to send you a $500 check. I said, what? He said, yeah. You can use it to do whatever you want to do. Whether it's to buy extra food, whether it's to pay bills. Because I was still on welfare. I was shocked. I said, you're going to do this for me and my children? He said, oh yeah, it's no big deal. I was so shocked. I said, you're an angel. I said, you're an angel, and you're my angel. And he laughed. He laughed. And he did everything what I just mentioned. When we got to the new apartment, he even asked me, do you need furniture? Do you need this? Do you need that? And in my head I'm saying, but you've already done so much. You've already given me so much for me and my children. So I had even said to him, I said, I don't really need furniture because the counselor, they had access to a furniture bank, place where you can get used furniture but in good condition. And so they had given me a referral letter. And so I took the referral letter and I went there and I chose like bedroom, beds, sofa, and so on and so forth, and other little things, desk and other little things. And that was how we started off this friendship. And over the years. It was over 5 years where he supported me and my children every month. Like 1 week before the end of the month, his check was in the mail for $500. Do the math. For over 5 years. And by this time, my children were getting older and they were all in school. And that was when I decided to find a job and go back and try and help myself. By this time, he was also like getting ready to hand over the company, I think, to his son or some other relative. So he wasn't really gonna be in charge of the operations anymore. So I thank him. And every year I used to send him a letter of thanks. And I make sure that my children also wrote a letter to thank him. And there was one Christmas he took me shopping with all my children Christmas lists of all the items they wanted. They want this, they wanted that. My daughter wanted Nike jacket, Nike running shoes. My son wanted Legos in all description and Hot Wheel cars in all description. My younger daughter wanted Barbies of all description. And he came and took me shopping. To the point where that Christmas, my children, they were shocked when they came out and they saw all the gifts on the tree. Because they, in their head, keep saying, but we're not seeing mom going shopping to buy anything. Are we even gonna get any Christmas gift this year? My older daughter keep asking me, did Rob contact you? Did this, did that? I said, well, yeah, but just wait until Christmas Day and we'll see, what will happen. I kept it a secret. I never told them. I had a little storage room outside of the apartment, and the day after he took me shopping, that was another situation all by itself. He came and picked me up in his customized Mercedes-Benz it looks like a van. I can't even remember now what you call it. Where there's a phone in the dashboard, where there's speakers all over the phone, where the seats are, you can warm up the seats because this is winter time. And he's driving and all he did is, because the phone started ringing, which shocked me, an SUV, yes, SUV, customized, brand new, black Mercedes-Benz. Never been in a car like that before in my entire life. Oh, Rob, my angel. That's how I describe him, my human angel. What a kind, gentle man. Showing love, God's love. Because I know it's the Lord who sent him to me and my children. He could have chose any other family in that shelter, but he chose me and my children to help us. And I know it was my Lord who sent him to us. And when we went shopping that day, he took me to Costco. Never been in Costco. Barely heard of Costco when they came to Canada and opened all their stores. This was my first trip going into Costco. And it wasn't close to where I was living. This was one out of town. And he kept talking and talking. Yes, Margaret, we're going to go. And make sure you have all the children's lists. I say, yes, I have all their lists right here. He said, yes, we're going to get some. He said, but what do you want for Christmas? I said, it's not about me. It's about my children. So he said, but don't you want anything for Christmas, Margaret? I said, no, not really. As long as my kids get what they want, because I told them to make the list like you asked me to. And they have all their stuff on the list. So it's about them. Because as far as I'm concerned, Christmas is for children. He said, okay, well, let's go. And he's driving for like must be about 45 minutes. And when we got there, he said, okay, Margaret, you grab a cart and I'll grab a cart. This was my first time going into Costco. I was amazed at the size of this Costco. I was amazed that they had everything you could think about in this store. The only time I heard of Costco is when they announced it on the news that they're bringing Costco to Canada and they're building one here, one there, one the other place. But you need to be a member and you have to have a membership card to go shopping there. I said, well, that counts me out. Because I can't afford their membership for a whole year and how much money you have to pay. I said, please. But that was where Rob took me. And everything that was on my children's list, he bought. To the point where when we came up to the cashier, my heart was palpitating and beating so fast when I see the total of the bills. And it was like nothing to him. He pulled out his black card. First time I've ever seen a black card. Or gold card, whichever card it was, whatever color it was, I can't even remember. And I'm saying, oh, snap, crackle, pop. What is this? And then he says, okay, Margaret, so we got everything on my two younger children list, but we have to go to this other store to get what my older daughter wanted because they didn't have nothing Nike in there at that time. So I said, okay, no problem. And so he pulled into another store, and there we go. He said, get everything, what she needs. Look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. And I'm looking at the prices. I'm looking at the price tag, and it's bothering me. But like, he didn't care. He just wanted to make sure that everything that was listed on their list, that I got it. And then when we finished and we got everything, he said to me, no, this was before we leave Costco. He said, so Margaret, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for Christmas? I said, but I told you, I don't really need, I don't want a Christmas gift. I don't need a Christmas gift. As long as my kids, they get what they ask for on their list. Rob, that's all I'm concerned about. And he wouldn't stop insisting. I said, okay, okay. I do not have a microwave. So if you can get me a microwave, I look over there and I see they have microwaves. And you see that little small one? That would be good for me. I said, because I don't have a microwave. I have a toaster and I have my oven and my stove, but I do not have a microwave. So if you can get me a microwave, that would be. It's okay. No problem. First of all, he said, a microwave is not a Christmas gift. And I started laughing and he started laughing. I said, maybe to you, it's not a Christmas gift, but for me, it is a Christmas gift. I said, okay, Margaret, whatever you want, whatever you want. And so he went over. I show him a little microwave. Do you think he picked up the little microwave? No. He went to the biggest microwave they had there. The microwave was so heavy. I'm saying, but Rob, I do not need a huge microwave. He completely ignored me. And he picked up the biggest microwave and put it in his cart. I say, wow, wow, wow. When we get to the cashier now, and I see the amount of the bill, thousands of dollars, I'm getting nervous. I'm saying, oh my goodness, I'm going to tell him that's it. He doesn't need to forget to buy anything else. He said, okay, so let's go now and get your older daughter's stuff, that is extra stuff that is on her list. I don't know how to tell him, I just kept my mouth shut. Because it didn't even make sense me saying to him, I appreciate what he's done and all this stuff. And so we went on shopping. But I want to give you the joke. When we're in the store, the Costco shopping, there's other shoppers looking at us from every other ethnicity. And some of them, I know what they're thinking. Oh, that must be our sugar daddy. That must be this. That must be that. Because we're not of the same ethnicity. And at one point, I couldn't even care less. You can think whatever you want to think. You do not know that this is my human angel that God sent to provide everything me and my children needed for Christmas. We went to the next store, the same thing. Women looking at me up and down, looking at him up and down. He wasn't even paying attention to nobody. He was just focused on the list and buying everything that was on the list for my older daughter. And I said, wow, wow, wow. I would never forget him as long as I live. And my younger daughter, who is now like 32 years old, she said to me, Mom, the best Christmas I remember was those 2 Christmases when Rob bought everything for us on our Christmas list. I said, you remember that? She said, oh, could I forget? I said, wow. Wow. And this is why I call him my angel. No one in my life had ever done anything like that for me and my children. No one. And 5 years after he took me shopping, He said, Margaret, this is what I'm going to do every month for you and your children. I'm going to be sending you $500, check every month. And what you can do is whatever you need to do. And so that was what he did. He was a man that stood by his word. And the odd time he would call me, the odd time I would call him and we'd talk, and he wanted to keep up to date. So how is everything going, Margaret? How is this? How is that? Are you keeping up with the rent? Are you this? Are you that? Are you... And that was what he did for us. Rob was not of my ethnicity, but he was a loving, caring young man that showed empathy towards me and my children. Something that very few know about, because it's all about them and their money and their businesses and their fat bank accounts and their millions and their billions. So they do not have to reach out and help anybody that is beneath them, because that is how they try to impress people and think. But there is always one person. There is always one person that thinks differently. And I thank God for those individuals. For so many years, because Rob retired from the company and he handed it over, I think, to his son and to other people that he had in charge. And he started another company, because surprisingly, after all these years, after I moved on, after he moved on, after my children, they grew up, my daughter said, Mom, I went on Facebook and I saw Rob has Facebook. And she contacted him. And at first he did not want to respond, because he said a lot of people know who he is and his status, and they look at his wealth, and so they pretend to know him. So he did not respond to the first message, my dad. And all we wanted was to say to him was thank you and talk to him and ask him if he remember. And then he responded, because when my daughter started to tell him the story, he said, oh my goodness, this is one of Margaret's children. And he responded, and he gave my daughter his phone number, his cell phone, and we call him and we reminisce, and the same person, never changed. The tone of his voice so calm, and we talked and laughed, and he said to me, he said, Margaret, I'm retired now. And he's telling me where he lives, somewhere out of town. And he said, and he was into all this computer business. I can't even think, he invented some other computer something, and that business is doing well. And this is, yeah, business, successful businessman. And I kept thanking him and blessing him, and I tell him I keep praying for him, and so on and so forth. And he was so happy to talk to us. And he was even saying, you know, whenever he visits Toronto, he would like to meet up with me and you know, just for old time's sake, just to talk and laugh and stuff and thing. But I wasn't able to do that. I wasn't able to do that. And there's so many days he comes to my mind, and even my children, and they always bring up his name, and we talk and we laugh and we say, oh, what he did. Even on today, like today, my son, he still has that Lego set. That was one of the gifts that he had asked for. And my son is 33 years old, and he still have that Lego set. Yes, some of the pieces are missing, but he still have that Lego set. And when he came by for Christmas, and I started to ask him if he remembered where he got that Lego, he said, oh yes, he remembered. That was one of the gifts that he had on his list. That Rob. I reminded him. He said, oh yeah, he remembered. So I didn't have to go through the whole story. And he said, yeah, he remembered. So Rob, wherever you are, I love you and I appreciate you. So does my children. We'll never forget you as long as we live. And you're our angel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And God bless you. And may He keep you. And may you keep doing what you're doing, showing love to those that are in need. I thank you. Well, that's my story for today. Viewers and subscribers, I thank you for listening to my other video. Thank you. Have a blessed day. Until you hear from me again, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Love you much. Bye-bye for now.